Mr. Pond Boss, tell me what to do.
Don't you just love that little song?
To make all my Lunker Lake dreams come true.
Hello, everybody. Bob Lusk, the Pond Boss. We're going live on this Tuesday, hanging out with a longtime dear friend, Scotty Tucker from Australia. Hello, Scott.
G'day, mate.
How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well.
I'm so glad you're here in the United States, and we're going to hang out. We have one viewer. Look at that, one viewer already. So I can't wait to see who that is. Somebody will chime in here in a minute. But gosh, we spent the last couple of days together, and we got more time together, and we're going to go take a look at some lakes. We went and stocked a bunch of fish today. That was kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't get to do that in Australia very often, do you?
No, not with largemouth.
Yeah. There's Deborah Corlew. Look at there, checking in. She lives in Iowa, as I recall. So Deborah loves to hang out, talk to us, and just kind of share. Jason Dodd from Kansas. Jason, I was looking on your Facebook page. Something popped up. I don't know what it was, but it concerned me for a minute. But I don't know what it was. But anyway, hey, I'm glad y'all are here. So hanging out with Scotty Tucker. What's the name of your company in Australia?
Water Quality Solutions.
Water Quality Solutions. So what do you do?
So we mostly deal with smaller ponds by your scale of things, sort of 5 acres or less, typically, and we deal with all sorts of things. We don't have the pond management industry that you guys do, so a company like ours, we get drawn into improving water quality for wastewater, wineries, fishing lakes, a lot of just private ponds, just for aesthetic sort of ponds, and irrigation ponds, nurseries, cemeteries, graveyard, the whole shebang. Yeah, all sorts of weird and wonderful.
So they have ponds in the cemeteries?
They do. So they have large cemeteries with ponds, and that was one of the weirdest, most unusual calls I ever took, was a cemetery up in Gympie in Queensland. And he was describing the conditions of the pond, and I said, well, it sounds like you got too many nutrients coming into the pond. I said, you got a lot of birds in the system, you got what's going on? And he said, yeah, there's birds there, but we actually think it's body seepage from the east wing.
Oh, body seepage from the east wing. Oh my gosh, that sounds political to me.
Yeah.
Body seepage into the ponds.
Yeah.
Ugh. Well, you have different challenges than we do. I mean, like, all Jason Dodd wants to do is grow big fish. Big ivory strappers, big largemouth bass, big bluegills, keep the blue-green algae down. You guys deal with quite a bit of blue-green algae issues, right?
Yeah, blue-green algae. That's probably what we do most is deal with algae control and weed control, and people just want their ponds looking good. A little bit of fish stocking, but not so much as what you guys do over here. But a lot of blue-green we do get.
That seems to be a worldwide thing. Jason Dodd had a cyst cut off of his forehead. Well, I didn't read that in the post, but I knew you had something cooking, so to speak. So, Scotty brought some rum a while ago. Now, I'm out of bourbon. Go figure. So I made us both an old-fashioned with rum. And it's not too bad, is it?
It's all right.
Yeah, so we're going to kind of go through that. Hello, John Dyer. Best way to get rid of nutrients and calm down the blue-green algae, Jason. Talk about that. So, in Australia, what's the best way, which is going to be probably worldwide, what's the best way to get rid of nutrients? Now, that's kind of a catch-22 thing there. Get rid of nutrients and calm down the blue-green algae. So what do you guys do?
So we're very limited with our chemical options in Australia. So most of what we do is nutrient management, nutrient control, because by the time the nutrients get out of hand and you're getting the algal blooms and the weed, you're sort of somewhat limited with a tool. So the goal is to not let it get there, not reach that.
So what do you do? What's preventative? What do you do that's preventative?
So preventative past the point of looking at the watershed and the water flow coming in and trying to put up riparian barriers and that type of stuff. But once the nutrient's in the water, we do a lot just with biological augmentation, biological nutrient reduction. So
like what?
So we'll put in aeration, increase the dissolved oxygen, get the aerobic bacteria higher and more active in numbers, and higher in numbers and more active, and then we'll stimulate it with enzymes, the bacterial type products that is quite common over here.
Okay, so you're using aeration and you're using some microbes to expedite the pond's ability to process the nutrients that it has to get it ahead of the curve before the blue-green algae begins to grow.
Yeah.
So you're not really trying to sequester any phosphorus or anything like that there.
We're just starting to. That type of technology, one of the companies, Bob actually originated in Australia.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that I'm going to say probably 10 years ago, maybe a bit longer. And they did a really good job of marketing, and it was one of those products that it went through the country, and every irrigation pump shop type of company had it, and it worked, and it worked, reasonably well, but it was super expensive, and it worked, but then depending on the application and how often those nutrients came back in again in the form of phosphorus, it meant it had to keep doing repetitive treatments, and so it got cost prohibitive very quickly, and people stopped using it, and it sort of fell off a little bit, and then they picked up and they brought it over here, and I think they were still probably the originators of those types of products, but it's a lanthanum based product, and depending on who you speak to, lanthanum is a heavy metal, so some people don't really like that idea much.
So you think you're kind of trading problems then?
Possibly, yeah.
But we don't know.
Yeah.
So really what causes blue-green algae is an imbalance between phosphorus and nitrogen. And, 40 years ago, nobody ever talked about blue-green algae. And that doesn't mean it didn't exist. It probably did. We just didn't recognize what it was. But now a good part of the program is buffer zones around the edge of the pond, especially where the water's running in. If you can create a filtration system, a natural filtration system of plant life, and then use aeration to help break down the organics a lot quicker, then you're going to mitigate the risk of having blue-green algae. And so Jason Dodd here, he's here in Wichita, Kansas. He said the majority of my watershed runs through a cow pasture. Lots of nitrogen, fair amount of phosphorus. So you're going to get nutrient loads. So really, there was in biology, there's one catchphrase that's kind of encompasses all of this. It's the solution to pollution is dilution. So the more it rains, the more it flushes in, the more it flushes out. At some point, maybe things can work a little bit better. But we're learning a lot more about blue-green algae, and it's fascinating to me. Every year, the city of Austin puts out an alert for coves of Lake Austin that are toxic with blue-green algae. And they'll tell people, don't let your dogs get in the water, stay away from it. But they're not proactive about trying to do anything about it. They're not proactive with aeration. They're not proactive with trying to use any kind of microbial products to expedite the breakdown of those nutrients that cause it. So it's really interesting. Mike Cottrell is from Palo Pinto County. Actually, Cottrell went to Trinity High School. Did you know that? You have no way of knowing that. Trinity was one of our rivals when I was in high school at Richland. Mark Dyer from Nebraska. Dave Weber he lives in northwest Missouri, experiencing an unexplainable, significant fish kill in my oldest pond today. I'm completely baffled. Well, let's raise the hood on that a minute. Do you ever deal with fish kills?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So where would you start on this one?
I'd start with having a look at how it happened, like in terms of the time, how you discovered the fish killed. Was it sort of first thing in the morning? Was it overnight? Was it quick and sudden? Was it slow? I'd be looking at the weather and having a look at what sort of weather events have happened recently. And then I'd be looking at if there's anything highly unusual, like your neighbours spraying herbicides or pesticides or things like that. My brain would take me towards excluding that first, and then in what I've seen, in most cases, it's typically weather events, and I'm just looking at what's going on, not knowing which part of the world that is, but if it's close to where we were in the last few days when we went tubing down the river in San Marcos and it was stinking hot, and then the thunderstorm came in and it went really cold really quickly.
Totally.
That's what I'd be looking at as the primary sort of thought process. It sounds like it's a weather related fish kill.
Yep. So most fish kills, it's really easy for a biologist to look at you and say, well, you had an oxygen depletion, which is probably true. But that's a symptom. I mean, the oxygen depletion is the sneeze, it's not the disease. So what happens typically is water quality deteriorates. It does it over some span of time. Hey, Dave, are you feeding your fish? Just hit me with a yes or no. Mike Cottrell's got the Trinity Trojans up. Hey, rebels. We were rebels. I don't know what they are now. They don't let them call them rebels anymore. But we actually beat you guys when I played basketball back in the day. You guys, man, there was a fantastic basketball player. I don't know, Mike, I don't know how old you are, but there was a guy, Trinity. I graduated from Richland in 1973. We won district, made it all the way to quarterfinals, got beat in the finals of quarterfinals, which kept us from going to state, which would have got murdered if we went. But you guys had a center that ended up owning, I think he still has a barbecue restaurant in Euless somewhere. What was that guy's name? That guy was a stud. He was really, really. Hey, Danny Max checking in from San Antonio. He's been clicking all over on Facebook and finally see live below your picture. Max 54. Well, you don't have any idea who I'm talking about because that was like a long time later. You graduated in the late 80s. Okay, so I'm getting lost here. Let's back up here. So that fish kill, I think if I were going to try to investigate that, Dave, I'd really start looking at the water because I bet you that's how it originated. Michael Eric lives in Iowa. He's been wanting us to go live at 6:30, and here we are. Because my sweet little wife, right over there in that room, talking to Nat, who tags along with this guy, and they're having a conversation talking about babies and hair and fingernails and the river and stuff. Well, here we are. So let's see what Deborah says. Deborah says, the hybrid red ear and green sunfish that have been sold to us as red ear. Ooh, it's a little cheeky. We've created a name for them. They have large mouths like a bass, and when you grab them to take off the hook, they will wag their tails and flex every muscle they have. So we've named them Billy Bass, because they act just like bass. Hey, you remember seeing there was this deal that was out years ago, a little rubber bass that had a battery in it, and it would sing some stupid ass song.
Hanging on the wall?
Yeah, hanging on the wall, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Take me to the river. That's it. She's got it on his plaque. Yep. All right. So, hey, bring some questions to us so we can hang out with you longer, because I'm going to run out of material pretty quick. Kathy Shannon. Hey, I'm Jay's mom. What? I'm so glad you're here. Hey, finally get to catch us live. Well, Kathy, we're glad you're here. Thanks for coming, hanging out with us. We're trying to have a little fun and be informative as much as we know how. So let's see here. Mark Dyer had a recent breakthrough where there seems to be enough support to finally invest more financially in turning around our nutrient-driven cyanobacteria issues and rough fish issues. Kenny is working on a proposal of options to present to the homeowners, slow but still progress. You know, I'm so proud for you guys, Mark. That's outstanding. You know, the more educated people can get, the better decisions can be made, and the better stewards you can be, and you guys can be onto something special. And you know what? You can become a model for other areas, other rock quarries, other lakes in that area, actually across the nation. If you guys can come up with something that people buy into it. You know, one of my experiences here in the United States, Scotty Tucker, is people still think that fish, pecans, and watermelons are free. They don't get it. They think they can come in your yard, pick up pecans under your pecan tree, or go harvest watermelons out of your watermelon patch, and fish don't cost anything. That's not true. So, when people begin to understand there's value there, then they can begin to absorb the concept of becoming better stewards, and which is what we preach. I mean, you preach that down under. I preach it. Where are we, up yonder? All right. So here we go, Mark. What's the John Dyer? John Dyer lives in the Carolinas. He wants to know what's the backbone of the food chain in Australia. So, how much fisheries management do you do?
Not a lot, and what little there is, it's typically clients will just stock some native fish, and they'll grow them out. They'll buy them as fingerlings. They'll grow them out, get to plate size in maybe a year or two. Those fish, if they breed, they're not successful because in the wild they breed in the river system, and the eggs need to remain buoyant, or they hit the bottom and get fungus grow all over them, and then they're done. So we need to keep restocking. Most of the fish that come out of the hatcheries are what you guys call feed trained. So you typically, any fish that you're buying from a hatchery is already weaned on crumbles.
So the backbone of the food chain in Australia is fish food?
Yeah, pretty much. And then otherwise, like, we'll just lightly stock, and we don't have the food chain method or processes that you guys do, where you're fertilising the pond and letting it go through the microinvertebrates, macroinvertebrates, the whole way up. We've got some pest fish, gambusia, there's some small little natives. It's one of the cool things that we're looking at doing. We just recently bought 20 acres, and we're going to be, the state government has got some programs out where they're trying to breed small native fish that are endangered. So we're going to try and get on board with that and do some of that work. But those small feeder fish that you guys encourage and stock,
like bluegills,
we don't do that. It's just you buy the fish that you want to ultimately catch and let them feed naturally just on the water insects. One of the fish are omnivores, so they can be useful and they're easy to feed in that regard, because if they run out of the steak, they'll eat the veggies, so they'll control some of the plants. But
I know how that works.
Yeah.
That Bay Milton murder. We were at his lake today. He got a cute comment. I'm going to circle back on that in a minute. I don't know where he's hanging out. Okay, the backbone of the food chain in Australia is fish food. Mark Dyer, here's a long theoretical question. Have an out-of-the-box thinking type question. As you're aware, we have nutrient-rich lake with cyanobacteria. So he's in Nebraska. He lives on an old rock quarry, which is a neighborhood in a homeowners association. So he's limited to what he can do based on whether anybody else cares about it or not, and willing to write a check. So, it's kind of like, are they going to spend money on the golf course or the lake? The golf course. Yeah. So let's see what he's got here. As you're aware, we have a nutrient-rich lake with cyanobacteria blooms, excessive carp and shad, coupled with an out-of-balance game fish population of stunning crappie, too many catfish, low density of largemouth, predominantly under 14 inches, and bluegill population mostly 4 to 7 inches. Our lake is deep enough that shocking and netting the adult carp and shad to reduce the numbers could take years. If we were to install an aeration system, could it ever be a benefit to cause a low DO event, which would likely move fish towards the surface, and then do a shocking at that time to net out as many undesired species as possible? This is the longest run-on sentence I've ever read, but I like it. At an expedited rate. If that was accomplished, could a person then stock with proper game fish numbers to regain sport fish balance and better rough fish ratio? Or would there be too much uncontrolled variability with the numbers of species that survive the event to be able to properly recover? I may ask this tonight live. Oh, there it is. Looks like you typed it in, copied, and pasted. All right, Mark Dyer, let me tackle that. I'm going to come back to it. Eric, can shad make it in an Iowa pond? Yes. In our local reservoirs, walleye are growing huge, eating shad. Yes, they can. But you got to be smart. Hello, Dustin Crawley. Oh, you know what? I forgot to do this. Don't forget, hashtag Pondness Magazine. Click like. Share this to your timeline. You're eligible for a drawing for a Pondness hat, which Leanne is watching this tonight. She just hadn't chimed in yet. Look at there. There's Pondness Magazine. $35 a year, cheaper than a Friday night date, and it lasts a year. So I'm just dying to get into Bay here, so to speak. Had to go all the way to Australia to find someone willing to be on your show tonight. He was on your lake today, dude. He was stocking bass. What do you think about his lake?
That was awesome. That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was great. That's amazing. You're a lucky guy, babe.
Guess what he's going to name his ranch?
What's that?
The Blind Luck Ranch. So he said, seems like a knowledgeable guy. Don't ruin him. I better quit talking right now or this is over. All right, let's go back to Mark Dyer's question. All right, I'm going to give you, here's the way I'm going to answer that, Mark. The fishery is a response to what's offered to it. And I want everybody watching this show tonight to digest that statement. The fishery is a response to what's offered to it. If the carp are thriving, that's because carp have what they need. They have mud. They can feed on the bottom. They have the right habitat to reproduce. They've got the right kind of escape cover. They have all that. So when a lake has what that species of fish needs to thrive, it will. So the way that you shift that is, and it all goes right back to the 5 fundamentals. And I want you guys to digest this as much as you can. Happy water. If the water's happy, everything else is going to work. And it works in this order. So if the water is the medium, that's what everything in the water needs to be able to thrive and live in. So if you don't have that, nothing else matters. And then the second part is habitat. As goes the habitat, so goes what lives in it. If you've got the right kind of habitat for bluegill, they're going to thrive. If you got the right habitat for bass, they're going to thrive. If you got the right habitat for carp, they're going to thrive. Got the right kind of habitat for gizzard shad, they're going to thrive. So when you've got that, then it's going to work for that species of fish. If you got the right food chain for those fish, they're going to thrive. You got the right genetics for your part of the planet, and if you don't have a harvest plan, you need one. Because that's the fifth, or the most important part from the day-to-day strategy. So, Mark, to tell you this, aeration, what that will do is give carp more habitat to thrive, because when you start aerating that lake, they're going to be able to go all the way to the bottom and feed. Whereas when you have a thermocline that stratifies the lake and cuts it in half in the middle, like a layer cake, you're going to have a warm layer of water sitting on top of a cold layer of water that's devoid of oxygen below the thermocline. So they're not going to be able to thrive in that part of the lake. So here's where I'm going. Putting an aeration system in your lake is not going to enhance your ability to capture some fish. Now what you can do is you can start setting up some feeders in some of the shallow areas, and shallow meaning water less than 10 feet deep. And you can start feeding some carp up into those shallow areas, and you can start to capture some carp with seines or electrofishing or whatever you can do. But I think feeding would be a better solution than trying to figure out how you can, try to manipulate the water quality to make those fish move where you can do something about it.
How big's the lake, Bob?
That lake, Mark reminded me, but I'm thinking that lake is 35 acres. Mm-hmm. And it's a big rock quarry, like where they mine gravel out, And so they and then after the mining was over, they had the lake left over, and then the powers that be sold it, they developed it, and then built houses around it.
Yeah, I was going to say, and that's one of the differences between what we work with and what you guys do, because if that was a quarter-acre pond or a half-acre pond or something like that, you could potentially use a product called saponins, which comes from the tree root of a particular plant. They use it in Southeast Asia in aquaculture in prawn ponds, shrimp ponds. And what it does is you put it in there and it clogs the fish's gills, so it starves it of oxygen and sends them up to the top. But it doesn't harm anything else. So crustaceans, prawns, shrimp don't get harmed. But in a 35-acre lake, it's cost prohibitive.
Well, a lake like that, there was a span of time we could use rotenone and kill all the fish in it and start over. And that's a good way to go in a lake like that. The problem is, if you don't eliminate the source, then the risk of it happening again is going to be pretty high. Yeah. So it's a tough nut to crack. I remember something Ray Scott told me years ago. Ray Scott founded BASS, and he told me this. He loved to drink scotch at night, and he had one that he liked called Sheep Dip. I'd never heard of it, and I didn't start drinking any alcohol till I was 50, and then after I turned 50, I did what you guys did when you were like teenagers. And I still do that from time to time. I might do that again tonight. I don't know.
Play some catch up.
But when we were talking, he said, "You know what, Bob?" He called me Pond Boss. You know what, Pond Boss? He said, "If carp could jump, instead of starting the BASS thing, we might have started with carp. Because carp are fighters, and one of the things, Mark, I'd be tempted to do if you have enough interest, and that's I don't know how to address that, but if you had a carp tournament, invited some Boy Scouts and made it fun, give some trophies, at Bays Lake, we've harvested so far using electrofishing gear in shallow water, we've probably taken out, I bet you 600 or 700 carp between the ones we've electrofished and the ones that Bays shot when we electrofished them with a 22 caliber pistol. We've probably taken out 600 carp that average 5 to 6 pounds a piece, probably. And I think if you can get those numbers down, you're going to see a significant shift in the way the fishery starts to act. But I don't think you can do it with aeration. I don't think that's going to happen. Let's see what John Harson's got to say. John's on here all the time. Bob, should I add any golden shiners this fall or next year, or none at all? I want plenty of food for F1 tigers. I don't want them to wipe out my bluegills. So, I think the way you need to look at that, John, is study the relative weights of your bass. Weigh and measure some bass. Study that. And if you guys don't have our spreadsheet that Jim Allen put together, email me. Just send me an email at info@pondboss.com, and I will send you that spreadsheet. You can plug your links and weights in and compare your bass to standard bass. And that's what you need to be looking at. You need to be seeing how well your bass are growing, and if they look like they're beginning to level off or lose a little bit weight, golden shiners could certainly be a pretty good option. R.E. Thompson from Mississippi. R.E., he's one of the most amazing people. He's in his mid-80s. He has a lawn service. He has a ministry. He manages ponds. He goes fishing. He rebuilds engines.
He's a busy guy. In his 80s.
Well,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and I love what Clint Eastwood told Toby Keith years ago. Clint Eastwood was knocking on the door of 90, and Toby Keith says, "How do you do that?" And Clint Eastwood looked at him and said, "I don't let the old man in." R.E. Thompson is not letting the old man in. Okay, there's Ben Kustrin, hashtag Palma, there you go, Doug Cusick. Oh my, Bay, JDFIU. What's that acronym mean? Junk, dog, fly inside your underwear. I have no idea.
You have to translate that into Australian. Yeah. I'm sorry, mate, I didn't get that.
Yeah, so, I don't know, that's got to be something from down under, knowing Bay. All right, Robert Dyer. Mark Dyer has the right type of conditions for cyanobacteria. That's why they're thriving. That's kind of an underhanded but true statement. And you guys are probably kin. Greetings from South Mississippi. Mark Hicks. If I want my channel catfish to grow their full potential, 20 plus pounds, how many can I safely have per acre? 2.3 acre pond loaded with copper-nosed bluegill and golden shiners. Mark, I'll tell you this. You should be able to sustain, without your water quality deteriorating, somewhere around 500 pounds of channel catfish per acre. Now, this is where we can kind of get into a fun little conversation. There's a difference between sustaining carrying capacity and standing crop. So a carrying capacity for a pond like that probably is 1,000 pounds per acre, but you should never have that much. That means that as you go, as you're producing catfish, you're harvesting some. But I think 500 pounds per acre, so a 2.3 acre pond, what's that? what's half of 2,300? 16, no, 15, 14, 13, 12, right around 1,200 pounds total. So whatever that means, so 1,200 pounds, 20 pounds spread, 60 big catfish, 60 to 80 big catfish is probably what you can do. Okay, so Scott Grooms from Beggs, Oklahoma, west and south of Tulsa. 8 acre with 3 feeders. Okay, so looks like he's responding to somebody else and I missed it. 8 acre with 3 feeders. Yes, loads of fish on the feeders, but while fishing in the middle, there are lots of bluegill at all the structure areas. Okay, that's a pretty good point right there. So one thing I look at when I'm electrofishing a pond is how are the fish distributed? You know, if we're out in the middle of Bay Miltonberger's Lake and we're going around a willow tree that's in 8 feet of water that's flooded, you know, and we're shocking up little bluegills, I know there can't be very many bass out there, or those bluegills would not be there. You know, but when we're shocking the lake and we see all kinds of little bluegills around the perimeter, I know that they're being pushed up into those shallows because the predator fish are after them. So, fish behavior and fish distribution is one of the things that gives you clues as to what your fishery looks like and what the status of it is. So, as you know, so in Australia, you're kind of dialing in more on water quality. So what's the demographic of a pond owner in Australia? Who owns a pond in Australia? Who are they?
They're probably 40 to 70 years old. The ones that have got ponds that want to invest in it typically might have their sort of lifestyle property, their second home, hour and a half out of the capital city, and want it looking good and enjoy it when they go down there with the kids or grandkids. And yeah, that's sort of your property owner type demographic.
So it's kind of a recreational thing mostly.
Yeah.
Then you got the cemetery ponds with human seepage.
Yeah.
We really talked about that.
Yeah.
And then you've got park ponds, I guess.
Yeah, we have park ponds, like in municipality sort of ponds, and we have recently we've been doing a fair bit of work with the mining sort of ponds. You know, these are out in the middle of the outback, in the middle of nowhere, lime ponds. Some of them, we had one last year that came up from an artesian bore or an artesian well, and it was, I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit, but I'm going to say it was like 50 odd Celsius water temperature.
Well, that's over 100 degrees.
Yeah, we have water out there that's in some of the fracking ponds, so part of the gas extraction, that are like 3 times the salinity of seawater. So they're brine type ponds.
So what do they do with those?
Not a lot. Like, it's just trying to get rid of the algae and the odour, but bacteria is not going to survive in that sort of climate. So
because it's too hot, too salty.
Yeah.
Huh.
So yeah, that's
so some of that water is just toxic as it can get.
Trying to evaporate it in a lot of cases, which increases the salinity but gets rid of the water for them.
Yeah, well, I see some of that far west Texas, up where the Panhandle turns. You get in the Pecos River watershed. Some of that, there's some really, really toxic, salty water out there.
Yeah.
Probably not 3 times, ocean water, but 2 times. All right, so Mike Dare says, yes, 35-acre sand pit, sand bottom. Strangely enough, when I've fed over the last 2 years, very few carp would come to feed. Well, you must have Grey Poupon carp because they absolutely love fish food. Kathy Shannon, Mark Hicks, plus a supplement. Okay, all right. Peyton Igo. Hey, Bob, I met with a group. Peyton is a wildlife biologist from the Shreveport, Louisiana area. Been to a couple of the Institute of Higher Pondologies. He's one of the upcoming rock stars in the pond management business. Built his own electrofishing boat recently, and Bay loves to be in his boat with him. So he's going to have to come back to Bay's Lake. Hey, Bob, I met with a group today that just started construction on a new 40-acre lake. It's going to be great. How do you feel about liming the floor of the lake before filling? Lake is seated in a 2,100-acre pine plantation, so low alkalinity is going to be a sure thing. Then I think liming the basin of the lake is absolutely true. You need to do that. So Bay says, just don't fark it up. Oh, that's that. I thought it had something to do with Australia. JDFIU. Let me scroll back up and make sure that he did that right. JDFIU. There it is. Okay. Yeah, he's right. That's one of my goals with him. He's got such a cool lake. I don't want to fark it up. He'll fire me and then say bad things about me, even though we're friends now. Let's see. Mark Dyer. My main thought was to create a fish kill with low dissolved oxygen by improperly starting the aeration when it's hot, causing the volume to... You could absolutely do that. You could do that. You could do that. You would not be very popular. Of course, you could fly under the radar and tell people you didn't know what the hell you were doing, but one of us would know. He's going to blame it on Robert. Mix the low oxygen, sending fish to the surface where they can be removed in large amounts. If it me a bad idea, I guess if it is a bad idea, which sounds like you're saying it is, it was Robert's idea. No, you know what? I see where you're going. And so if you put in an aeration system in a 35-acre lake, you're going to spend, geez, how much would you spend on a 35-acre lake? Probably $20,000 on an aeration system.
Easy.
Then you're going to be spending $500 to $750 a month on electricity. I'm not saying it's a bad idea because it would probably work. John Wilson is checking in. You know John.
I certainly do. He's a great bloke.
Yeah, you've hung out with Aqueduct, the Aqueduct King, Big Frog, John Wilson. Hello, John.
G'day, mate.
Are you gonna go hang out with him?
We're gonna catch up with John in Atlanta. I can't wait.
Oh. Well, I'll see John toward the end of July. We're gonna hang out in July. I'm gonna run up there and take Debbie fishing, and then we're gonna go do what we do. I'm probably going to see Ron Krisman too. He's a smallmouth bass king up there in western Michigan. Vito Barnes, man, I haven't seen Vito in a while. Vito lives in Whitesboro. He grew up with some of my kids. And he's an adult.
So are your kids.
What happened there? Hey, let's do a commercial. Hey, Pond Boss Magazine, $35 a year. Cheaper than a Friday night date, and it lasts a year. If you haven't subscribed, you need to. And by the way, I want you guys to know, I've told this on this show before, but my oldest son, Ty, who's going to be 52 this year. I have a 52-year-old son.
That beard's pretty grey, mate.
Yeah, but you know what? I got good hair.
Yeah, it's going.
Debbie's making me grow it out. So, anyway, about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, Thanksgiving, Ty said, hey, Dad, you know, you got some pretty cool stories. Why don't you write them down? Well, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've sat around a campfire listening to people that have a whole lot of gray in their beard, you know, telling us stories that are cool stories. And I'll ask them, have you written these down? They'll say, well, no. And then they die, and they're gone. So I thought, you know, Ty, you're right. So I started writing stories of stuff, and some of these stories are pretty freaking cool, of stuff that's happened to me. I've had the most amazing life so far, and I'm not done. I'll have more stories. But I wrote down like 60 stories. And then my next son, Jonathan, says, Dad, would you do us a favor, and would you video yourself telling us some of those stories? So I hired Chico to come here, and we spent 2.5 days in different settings in the river at a baseball field, because some of the stories about baseball. And we went to 5 or 6 different venues, and I told all these stories on video. And Chico says, you know, some of these stories people would really like to read. And I said, Chico, you're messing with my head. He says, no, really, I'm serious. He said, I think some of these, it would be kind of a memoir, but people would really like to read some of these stories. So I started bouncing them off of Mark McDonald, an editor, and he said, dude, you need to write a book. This needs to go into a book. So guys, I've got 25 of the 60 stories working on a book. I've hired a cartoonist who has won more awards than Pulitzer Prizes than most people win. I'm not sure what that means. Yeah. Never mind. But this guy, I mean, he's drawn so many cartoons. Matter of fact, Texas Tech has a museum and there's a room dedicated to his cartoons, which that's a pretty big deal. So anyway, he's doing cartoons for this book. So I'm going to need to sell some books.
When are we going to see it?
Hey, it should be ready around Thanksgiving, so I'm just giving you guys a heads up.
Cool.
Texas Hunter Products. I love Texas Hunter. I love their customer service. I love the products. I love the feeders. I was talking to Keith today, and I cannot wait to see how he floats his happy ass out there to put feed. Right now he's got to drive a side by side into the lake, get a ladder, set it up, climb up the ladder, and put the feed in the feeders, because the lake is absolutely as full as it can get without overflowing. We drove over by the overflow pipe today, and from the wake of the boat, just when I circled around it, I could hear the water lapping over, just getting ready to overflow. It's not quite there, but it's really, really, really close. So that's pretty cool. Purina Mills. I love Purina Mills products. I know they're not as easy to get as we want sometimes, but I love the research and development that they've done. Easy Docs of Texas, David Schneiderman. I don't know that he's on here tonight, but if he's not, we're thinking about him. So there's the commercials. Oh, birddogit.com. Check that out. Jonathan Lusk, my son, has created a very, very cool business model. If you like to hunt, but you don't want to deal with a lease, you don't want to book from an outfitter months or years out, if you don't have a friend with a ranch, go check out birddogit.com and you can book a hunt. And he's doing some other things, some land stewardship. He's trying to figure out what his niche is, and stewardship is going to be one of those. So Mike Cottrell says, Purina's high here, can't imagine it down under. Do you have what kind of fish food do you guys have?
Yeah, we have same or similar sort of feed to what you guys do. But again, it's more for the aquaculture industry than the private fisheries, so we'll just be tacking on to, they'll just have like a native fish feed, and they traditionally they've mostly focused on the protein content rather than going right into the nutrient. They are catching up and getting better on it, I believe. And yeah, so most of those pet food sort of producers, manufacturers in the last few years have been focusing a lot on, not just the protein, but all the...
So what are the protein sources, do you know?
Not entirely sure, but I believe it's just fish meal, just trash fish that they'll use in processes or catch wild caught fish, and which in the aquaculture industry, I studied aquaculture, and it was one of the first things that I had a problem swallowing, is like it makes no sense,
so to speak.
Makes no sense catching wild fish to turn into fish food for captive fish. Like it's so. I was talking to the guys at Texas A&M yesterday about that. Like just ask, because they're doing a lot of work on food nutrition and different types of food.
Oh, a huge amount of work
down
there at Texas A&M with Dr. Dilbert Gatlin.
Yeah,
and that guy has been the go-to.
It's the holy grail. Like if we can find a food that you can feed fish that isn't fish, that the fish can grow off, and we can grow rather than catch.
Yeah, and that's kind of the catch-22. I mean, what kind of grain is there where they can combine all the different amino acids to build the proteins that fish need to digest? Because a largemouth bass is a predator, a bluegill is a predator, so they eat meat to digest the meat to be able to have the protein that they need to be able to gain weight. And they don't get it from soybeans.
Yeah.
They don't get it from wheat, so they got to figure out how to play the game.
And to genetically modify some vegan fish. Grow some vegans. Vegan's a bad word in Texas, yeah.
I'm not sure what it means. Hey, John Arson, I'm feeding half a pound of food 4 times a day. It's gone in just about a minute. Should I be feeding more? It looks like the water's boiling. The fish can hear or feel the Texas Hunter wind up and go wild. So here's my take on that. If you want to feed them more, okay, so I was at Bays Lake today. The water temperature is 83 degrees at the surface. That's getting to be at the point where fish, especially game fish like the largemouth bass, that's getting to be the top end temperature. Now the thing about Bays Lake is it's windswept, the lake runs east and west, so there's quite a bit of circulation from currents. And I didn't check the temperature down low, down around the thermocline, but its thermocline is going to sit at about 10 feet. And down around the thermocline, the temperature is going to have to be somewhere in the upper 70s. So fish like that. So here's where I'm going. As long as they're going to eat it, feed it. But once the water temperature gets pretty hot, they're going to back off. And so then I would back off. But then I would turn around, when the water temperature begins to mitigate, drop a little bit next fall, then bump it up. Because October, November, December is when fish, especially in southern climates, are really going to gain the most weight. That's when they need the most food. John Dyer, October, I think that book will be ready in October. But I'm also working on, hey, John, Jimmy Houston says, yeah, we want to analyze his lakes. I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. So I'm going to finalize the dates. We've got the dates for the Institute of Higher Pondology, and that book is going to be ready by then. All the stories are ready. They've been edited. I've sent them to a proofreader. She's going to read them and proof them. The cartoons will be ready in probably another 3 to 4 weeks. I've got the layout guy on point. I'm getting bids from the print shop. So this book is imminent. So it's going to get done. I did message Purina about my lumpy food. They said that they sold the business and gave me a new number to call. I have not called it. That's weak, John. That is weak. Now, I was at Purina, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, and I told them that feed had lumps in it. They knew it. So there's something going on with quality control, and they have subcontracted that feed production to another company, which I think is Rangan. So it's a little irritating, but they know it, and they're addressing it, which I don't know what that means. Now here's the problem with fish food at Purina Mills. It's in kind of a weird category. It's in the lifestyle category, but the lifestyle category is backyard flock, show foods, wildlife, and fish. Fish is the red-headed stepchild. So it just got passed one more time to a new salesperson, and I'm going to get to know her as soon as I can. Right now I don't. So Mark Dyer looking into installing aeration as part of the water quality improvements. That's a good idea, but I wouldn't look at it solely from the aspect of trying to murder some carp. Jason Dodd, original question about distribution, 5-acre pond, 2 feeders. Do the forage fish migrate to the feeders or stay evenly distributed throughout the pond? Can I assume there are similar quantities and size classes of bluegills and shiners? Where'd that go? Everywhere. Not just... Okay, so here's the way that works, Jason. It's kind of like a hunting ranch. There's a covey of quail that are going to hang around the house. So the house covey hangs around the feeders. So the feeders attract the feed hogs. They're going to be the ones that come there. But then there's going to be other population of fish that are distributed around the lake. So they're not necessarily going to be those fish that are all coming to feeders. You've got populations of fish around that lake. And your lake's pretty good size. So I think I don't know that they're going to stay evenly distributed, but they are going to stay distributed around the lake. Can I assume there are similar quantities and size classes of bluegill and shiners everywhere? Not yet. So it's going to be a denser concentration of fish around the feeders than around everywhere else, but there's going to be concentrations of fish populations in the different great habitat zones around that lake. There's your answer. So there's Danny Mack. Danny Mack got a comment up here that I slid by. Let me go back and look at it. Danny Mack came into the first Pond Boss Institute of Higher Pondology. We have all of Australia right here in Texas. What does that mean?
I don't know, but I'm guessing there's a lot more Aussies here now than what there ever has been since Qantas introduced direct flights to Dallas a few years ago. 30 years ago when I first came here, there was not many Aussies. Now you come over here and you show an ID to get into a bar or something and says, have you seen one of those? He goes, oh mate, we have Aussies here every week.
Wow.
Maybe that's what he's getting.
Well, that's kind of cool. All right, so I guess Danny Mack's run into all kinds of Aussies there in San Antonio. Outrageous harvesting of menhaden to make fish meal. Outrageous may be a little bit bold because I think that the companies that harvest menhaden recognize that if they overharvest menhaden, then they're done. So I know that the way they do it's kind of crazy. They have a mothership that's got all the processing facilities built in, and they launch airplanes, I guess. That's okay. They send up airplanes that find the big schools of menhaden. Then they send the fishing boats around to capture the big schools of menhaden. Then they take them to the mother boat that processes them, extracts the omegas, grinds them up, whatever they do, and freezes them. And they have this big processing plant on the water. But they also know that if they overdo that, they're out of business. Then the airplanes don't have a job, the fishing boats don't have a job. So I don't know what that balancing act is, but I know they're kind of dancing through it because there's always some regulatory action to try to manage the menhaden populations. We've been through this show for almost an hour. Let's see, 51 minutes, Scott. Good gosh.
You want to know the crazy aircraft water story?
Yeah, hear it.
I was in Dubai last year having a look at Al Qudra Lakes, which are man-made lakes in the middle of the desert. The UAE has zero natural ponds, streams, rivers, none, zero. So the Sheikh a few years back, or decades now, 10, 15 years ago, I think, built these man-made lakes out in the middle of the desert. And so I was out there having a look at those. And the guys that were showing me those, they have a contract for the municipality where if it rains, they have to send out trucks to go and clean up the puddles, and because it never rains, rarely rains. And the city of Dubai went up so quickly that their infrastructure is so poor, if it rains just a few inches, the city floods, completely floods. And I was there on one of the days when it rained, and so the guys called me in the morning and said, we can't go out to the lakes today, we've got to get all these trucks. So when it rains, the residents of Dubai will complain that there's a 1-inch puddle out the front of their house, so the city sends out a truck to vacuum the water up. Now the Sheikh likes rain, so Dubai, UAE, is one of the world leaders in cloud seeding. So he sends up aircraft whenever there are clouds that look like they're going to rain, he'll send up aircraft, they'll drop all their chemicals to try and get the clouds to drop and rain. And then when it rains, it floods the city, and he's got to pay trucks to go and clean it up. Work that out.
Man, I've never heard that. That's a pretty cool story right there.
It's crazy.
So yes, John Dyer, there is an Institute of Higher Pondology in October. The dates will be in the next issue of Pond Boss. I don't remember it, but yes, we are going to have an Institute of Higher Pondology, and we're going to study Jimmy Houston's lakes. He's got a 100-acre lake and a 77-acre lake. Mark Dyer, like Bass are here. What's the most popular fish species in Australia for private water bodies? What's the most popular fish species in Australia?
So kind of like here, you guys have your north and south. Our north is a hot, humid sort of climate. So up there, I'd probably say barramundi would be quite a popular one. Will grow quite large. It's a great sport fish. And down south, we have native perch, silver perch, golden perch. Also, Murray cod is another large predator fish that is pretty cool. But if you stock it with Murray cod, you don't end up with much else. And if you stock it with 30 Murray cod, you'll end up with 1 or 2. They're cannibalistic and will just nail anything that swims past.
So there you go. Barramundi is probably the number one fish. So yes, John, Institute of Higher Pondology, October. Bill Shrum, here's the plan. I think I'm going to extend the Institute by half a day, where people show up on Thursday at noon, then we go through some classes on Thursday. Then on Friday, we go to Jimmy Houston's and we electrofish his lakes with 2 or 3 electrofishing boats. And whatever you guys decide to do, I'm going to leave it on you guys to figure out how we're going to collect fish and sample the lake. Then you're going to analyze the data and you're going to write a report. And since John Dyer is watching this tonight, that guy's becoming the king of AI, and you guys are probably going to be able to use AI to help you put together the reports. They're going to go out to Jimmy Houston for both his lakes. So I called him right after the last one, which one of you guys, I don't remember who's asked me, it might have been Jacob West. I can't remember. So I called Jimmy and said, hey, we'd like to come in the fall and electrofish both your lakes and analyze them. He said, oh, yeah, please come. We'd love for you to come. It's been 5 or 6 years since they've been electrofished, so he's really ready to come do that. So, yeah, we're going to do it. I'll get you some more details and iron it all out. I'm working on that. I've been busy between grandkids and pond management. Hauled a granddaughter to Branson, Missouri for, should I say it out loud? Dance competition. Go to my Facebook page. You'll see it. Ralston Purity Company sold the animal. Okay, yada, yada, yada. You're engagement specialist, Jam. I have no idea who that is. Where do carp minnows and adolescents live in the water body? Do they stay close to habitat or are they schooled in open water? They hang close to habitat. They like the shallow areas. Jason Dodd, you briefly mentioned Jimmy Houston's Lake. What's the story with that? I'm great friends with his partner, the Wells family, fellow drag racer. I don't know who this partner is now. He used to have a physician that sold out. So I know he's got a partner on those two lakes, but that lake burst back in 2015, and then he repaired it, and then I helped him begin to restock it back in 2015. So it's been 10 years. I took him some copper-nosed bluegill. He's good friends with Norman Latona, who owns Southeastern Pond Management, who helped him restock it as well. So what's the story with that? I'm great friends with his partner. The story is that people are going to pay me to come to the Institute of Higher Pondology. Then we're going to go shock and evaluate with methods that we all decide, both his 100-acre lake and his 77-acre lake. That's what, there's the deal. Golly, Scott, over here the street cleaners no longer use water and they don't vacuum the dust, they just spread it. That's pretty funny. Yep, Mark Dyer, Institute of Higher Pondology. It's really going to be fun. We're going to kind of take it to the next level. So Danny Mack says it's all toxic waste. So Danny Mack, he is a nuclear physicist, rocket scientist, brilliant engineer kind of guy. So it's everything he can do to tone down his intellect so that all of us can understand it. Yeah, yeah, but he's doing a pretty good job. We love our Danny Mack. So guys, you know what? It's 7:27, and I think your drink is gone. My drink is gone. Our women are out there watching our grandkids swim in the pool. So I think we're going to wrap this up. So it's always fun hanging out with you guys. It's a good time, and thanks for coming and hanging out.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for being had. So where do you go from here?
From here we go see Outdoor Water Solutions in Arkansas, then we go across and see Aquafix up in Wisconsin, then we go down and see Sue Cruz, who used to work at Vertex down in Florida, and then we go and watch my partner's son playing a NBA recruiting tournament in Atlanta.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, so it's really cool.
And in Atlanta, I guess that's when you're going to see John Wilson.
John Wilson, yep. He's down there watching some baseball convention.
Yeah, that guy's a baseball nut. You know, I love baseball. I got some. John, I need to tell you some baseball stories. As a matter of fact, buy my book and you can read them. Here I am hawking a book that haven't finished yet. And then you're going to go to South America.
Yeah.
And how long are you going to be there?
Doing a bucket list trip. That's going to be a month. Amazon jungle, Galapagos Islands, Pantanal wetlands. Try and see an anaconda. That's what I want to see. But,
hey,
there we go.
Let it wrap itself around you and see how that works out.
Not very well.
Yeah, and then so right now it's getting into winter time there in Australia.
Yeah, it's cold.
So now's a good time to wrap it up.
Yeah.
So hey guys, we always appreciate you tuning into the show, and we appreciate it. I'm not sure where I'll be next Tuesday, but I'll do everything I can. Oh wait, I do know where I'm going to be next Tuesday. I'm going to be somewhere around Atlanta, Georgia next Tuesday, which is another story for another time. So, hey, there's Brent Rutan. Talked to him on the phone today. Mike Cottrell, yep, there you go. There you go. Mark, yep. John, hey, you bet. Hey, you guys are welcome. We're at 59 minutes and 29 seconds, 30 seconds. So we're going to wrap it up, and hope to see you next Tuesday. It'll be from a hotel room, wherever I am. Not sure where that's going to be. But I will see you next Tuesday. And Scott, always good to hang out with you, buddy.
You too, mate. Thank
Adios
you.
for now.
Thanks, guys.